conversational piece. You know, so you go to the folks that are out there, and can they do the same thing that we're doing here on our projections, on thinking about how this is going to roll forward? That's the crux of being able to really understand what are they feeling and what are they having to pay and what liabilities do they have to pay when you got Littlestown Borough that over the last decade kicked the can down the road on infrastructure, on the water system, and now, because to be in mandatory compliance, now they are looking at something that is something that now is impacting all the residents. And it's been mentioned through public comment from constituents that water bills, electric bills, and this and that. So this is all hitting us from all different sides and not just here. So there's got to be a thought process into thinking, how's it affecting them? And you know,
I'm part of them too.
Believe me.
All right, no, I just want to make sure you know that.
Yeah,
all right.
We're part of them. We are the taxpayers.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're just trying to do what's best in what is least painful, because everything is a decision is painful somewhere, right? So I think we should just stop and pause for a second and think about that. And I'm not saying that you want.
No, absolutely. Sure. Well, ownership side.
Okay, so we'll jump. So the next one is just ACTI. This is the authority. So I gave this to the board, the finance committee, all through last year of what the projection was. What we used was around that $45 million. That's right where we were at, between that $40 million mark for ACTI. So that's where that 1% for 3 years contract came from. So I was just refreshing because I really haven't used this slide this year until now. So then this slide is, what does a tax increase, how does that affect our property owners? So this is a slide we've seen many times. So even to your point, this is where the impact of those tax increases would go. So our average home is around $280,000, and then we have a $300,000, $400,000. So 1%. These are in 0.5% increments up to the index of 5.2. Board has authority going from 0 to 5.2 each year. I have 5% increments to show. And this is on an annual basis, and this is what the increase would be from what they had prior year. This does not take into account any homestead farmstead credit. We'll find that out in May, and I'll give that projection of what that impact will be in comparison from this year to last year.
And this is also not reflective of property taxes.
No, this would be reflective. It just shows the increase from year to year. If you want to figure out what your property tax is, you would just take this number at the top, divide it by 1,000, or take the first 3 digits and times it by this off to the left, and that would get you what you are paying for your house per year in property tax. At least from a district standpoint. You obviously have other property taxes.
Because we get 2 bills.
Correct.
We get a bill for the taxes to Adams County for property tax, and we get a school board tax.
Correct.
So there's more than just one animal here that's needing to be fed. Not animal, but you know what I mean. It's something that's needing to be addressed.
So I'll just finish out quick, and then we'll go back to the fund balance. That's the tax increase discussion, because that I need to have a committee recommend what we want to, if we want to have present a budget to the full board on Monday, and what is to be presented. If there's a 0, if it's 1%, 2%, 2%, 3%, anywhere from up to 5.2. I just need a direction that says, last year we used 0, 1, 2. We can make as many scenarios and present those as what the committee wants. So here's the change orders we talked about. There's quite a few. There's a lot in the pipeline that had to be approved. Dr. Mitchell's hand cramped here. So
trying to make it sound like that we might be using a lot more now that we're there?
One of the things that takes place, and I didn't realize that until I spoke with Victor and some others, new construction has very few change orders. When you remodel or redo a home or a building that's built in the 1960s, there's more change orders because you don't know what's behind the walls. For example, I'll share this with you. In the hallways in the 1960s wing, we need to remove the lockers and we have to put walls up. Above the lockers, there was no studding for drywall. So a change order came in, we assumed that there would be studding behind the wall. We have to add studding so that we can place a wall there. So that was a change order of less than $25,000 amount that I had to approve to the floor. So when you get behind different things that are there in an old home, you don't know what's there. If we run into asbestos, we have to do asbestos remediation, get rid of that. So when we don't have studding, when we don't have insulation, or we don't have things that are where we thought we had them, and in the 1960s, fuel prices were really low. We didn't believe in insulation because we could buy cheap oil. We have to now insulate because we don't have that cheap oil or cheap fuel anymore. So in other words, yes, change orders will increase because it is an older wing and we don't know what we can expect to see behind walls. So we were trying to be really, Victor especially was doing a really great job trying to keep change orders to a minimum for the new section because he knew when we got to this spot, we can quickly go through block if we're not careful.
So just go quickly through the timeline here. So the preliminary budget is what I was discussing. If the committee wants me to present budget to the full board here in April. Transportation RFP, looking to have the board approve me to advertise based off the RFP document I'll have on the work session. I just updated, I think if the committee wants, I can update the full board of what happened with the RFP. If not, I'm just going to wait until May. That April update was kind of tonight. We want, I can update the full board. That athletic design, and I have a verbal approval. So that's what we discussed is going to get a verbal approval from the full board that says this is the project scope. We're looking to put out the bid, and Turf Track and Court will start compiling those bid documents to go out, to get ready to then go out to bid. So I have that back to the board to advertise that. But we need to know from a permitting standpoint what permits we need based off of what selections we select.
So the sooner that we know what we want, the better it is for us getting the permits that we need so we can continue on with that
And
process.
to Jeannie's point, if we absolutely don't want something, we'd also need to tell them that. So it's opposite of the point. Like if there's something you're like, that's not, regardless of the cost, we just don't want it, or we want to investigate costs, that's also something different. So just any ideas, that way we have one complete package, and we're not trying to change it at the last minute for the design. So be very thorough with your questions you have to Brian, so he can take notes and get back if we have follow-up to give. Brian's the turf track court.
Oh, I was gonna
Sorry.
say,
Yeah, nothing.
Sorry, yeah, Brian's. So May timeframe will be Chartwell's. We would have them present and approve their RFP, and then we'd have the proposed budget or to sit for the required 30 days, and then the board would have to approve a final budget. So the two approvals that are needed, a budget time stance is May. We have to have something approved. Last year, remember the first iteration of the proposed budget was not approved. Just to remind the board, when the May proposed budget comes in, the board still has a month to change any information within that budget to then be finally approved in June. The proposed budget, just by compliance standpoint, has to sit for that 30 days. And then the final budget, and then transportation, we're looking to see if there was a selected vendor that was favorable. We'd look to have that awarded in June. Okay, so we'll briefly go back to the tax increase for presentation. So I guess the first question is the committee comfortable with me presenting the information to the full board?
I have some questions. Yeah, go ahead. Well, one, is that 6.1 untouchable?
Yes. Until we would know how much is left. Yes.
Absolutely untouchable.
Yes. That is needed to pay the
It's only
contractors.
another year though, right?
Yes, we will know because the project, we should about a half a year.
Half a year.
About January, we will know how much, but yes, until that point in time, 100% we cannot touch that money because it's needed to pay the men
It'll
working
be pretty
on.
All right,
We
so,
will.
yeah, but we still have to approve the budget before then, and that means have a tax raise, not have a tax raise before then. Then we'd have to assume certain things, because I was thinking if we could draw from there. But if that's not the case, then we have this athletic upgrade for the baseball and softball for this, would be in this budget. That's 700,000. Let's nix that now.
I would just say that's in capital reserve.
Okay,
this
so we
is
can't
just-
move any of that money either.
So this money, the money that we're using to pay for softball was in capital reserve. So you almost have to think it in two separate.
So that's not part of the pot we could use for.
So capital projects is used for capital improvements.
Right,
such
okay,
as
so
buildings,
we can't
athletics.
move that, we absolutely cannot move that.
So obviously the board can do what they wish. They would
Okay.
need to have full board approval to
Okay.
move that money out of capital reserve back into general.
Okay, well, since that can be done again, I would say this is an option.
Well, let me
Push
ask you a
that
question.
back.
I know if you do something on baseball, you gotta do something to softball.
That's right.
That's law.
Yes.
So we would have to nix everything, is that what you're saying?
Push it back.
Oh,
Push it off this year's budget into the 26, or 27, 28, push it back, use the 700,000, go with the zero budget. You've got your 180 for ACTI, and you've got your tax rates covered, we got a zero budget, right? Am I wrong? Please help me, because I don't know.
I personally think the revenue is very conservative and understated, so I think it's fine, but
I would,
If you wanna do
so I
that.
guess my question is, what portion do you find conservative that we would look to change?
You would look at both directions. Who you talking
Because the
about?
board gets to direct what's in the budget and what's in itemized numbers, so I guess the question would be, what's too conservative, and what would you propose as a change? Because I can reflect those changes, but I need a direction to go from.
well, I mean, I have all those different, I don't have the exact ones, but I could go through it.
But look, no, I'm just saying push it back. No one wants those changes more than I do. I've been here since the beginning, since we've been renovating and updating our school because, we've been kicking the can down the road for years. I want those to happen. But if we want a zero-line budget and we don't want to give tax raises this year, then this makes sense to me. If we can't pull it out of the 6.1, then this makes sense to me. And I'm willing to put it off another year. But I will tell you, Nick, I want that to happen. I know that's a pet project for yours. I want it to happen. And I want that neighbor to stop calling us about the baseballs too. Absolutely. But,
Well, it's not because it's anything to do with any of that. My thing about the tax increase, so they're asking for 1%, 2%, so 180,000.
Right.
To 360,000.
Correct.
Of a projected $2.1 million deficit. How is that 180 to 360 gonna help balance the budget? Because nowhere close.
Nowhere near.
So I'll just interject, I didn't isolate balancing the budget, that's a total separate, it's to do those 4 bullet points that I discussed, so that 1% would help recruit, retain staff, improve and enhance programs, keep pace with inflation. We have inflation that Stephen kind of alluded to with water, we're on the borough water, we're on electric, we have gasoline struggles, we have supply struggles. Some of those are gonna cost out of our budget, so we keep pace with those as we move forward. And then the last one was to keep a healthy fund balance, so we do a little bit now, it goes into the future, the same thing we've done. Those are the goals, that's what we're trying to address. By no means is this trying to balance the budget, that's a total separate issue.
right. So that's what I'm saying. Is what I'm saying makes sense or does it not?
So-
you tell me.
So I believe I heard you say you were looking at 1% for ACTI and setting
That's
aside.
180. Well, I'm
Yes.
looking at that 700,000 that you sort of have earmarked there for the baseball and softball.
So then the board would have to authorize the movement of
Yes.
that money back to general fund.
Correct.
But that would only alleviate 700,000 of the 2.1 million to Nick's point of the deficit. But yes, it wouldn't make it a balanced budget, but it would
Get us,
alleviate,
get us
yes.
there.
It would push everything down the road a little bit.
And
Right.
we never have a balanced budget, and we always end up with a surplus. So my point is that
Well, I think this coming year is going to be a little rougher than most of us think it's going to be. I think we see evidence of that in the news just today. I think if we can soften, if we can push it back a year, I think that would be wise to do. We've done an awful lot in the last 8 years, for sure, seven years.
what I'm getting at, and we can certainly do, the board can do whatever we want to do in terms of pushing
Sure.
whatever we want on. I don't think that one has to do with the other.
So then what I hear you saying
trying
is
to
that they're
raise
not budgeting
recurring-
properly, is what you're saying.
Well, did you look
I
at
didn't.
any of the stuff that we requested in terms of the year-to-year, since it's a historical, and I mean, they're saying that you always budget on your worst-case scenario. Well, the worst-case scenario has not come true
Ever.
since I went to school here.
Okay.
And, meaning the elementary school. That's how far back we asked for. That's never occurred. And so we have the more than enough cushion in the unassigned to, if we had a $2.1 million deficit, which worst case scenario, we would easily be able to absorb that. I don't think that the one-time expenses that are in the capital projects, like the windows and the gym and the athletics, I don't think that those really have anything to do with the other ones that are based on the recurring expenses in the budget.
Actually, prior to like 2015, we used to have a balance of a zero, revenues and people expenses in the budget back in the day. Then all of a sudden, we had these deficits, which ended up being surpluses, so.
And I think, and again,
And we raised
they're giving us
taxes on it.
these numbers that are like scary in 2028. I think that we're in good shape right now. I don't think that we need a tax increase this year. Let's see how it shakes out at the end of this budget. I don't think that it's gonna put the district in any sort of a bind any more than what asking for 10% of the deficit would do.
So what would
in a
rolling
tax
the dice do?
So I'll just,
What are we risking?
I was just gonna say the problem, or I should say the thing that we're not realizing is the tax increases are minute compared to what expenses could run away and become. So could we make it zero? We can try to make anything work. The problem is the authority for the board to raise taxes is 108, you mean up to the 5.2, which still, if we come to a point in time where we turn the curve and we're in the negative, takes years to come out because you're trying to go above and beyond the expenses you dug into. So if you do zero, at some point in time, that catches up and supersedes because the expenses always outpace. So yes, it's always a short-term solution, but not a long-term solution. And that's why all school districts have historically tried to keep and maintain a slow, steady increase to keep pace with those things.
Yeah.
Because if you do a little over time, that keeps it moving forward. The other thing is, at some point in time, the district has been able to do projects. If we do no tax increases to then have money for those projects, then we're going to be, well, we can't do anything. We need to address this project, and we have no money to address it.
Like Tim said, our 90+% of our campus is gonna be new by the end of all the projects that we've already allotted money for.
Doesn't mean new things don't break.
Well, the whole philosophy of having new is, like you said, it's more manageable and less of an impact. You mentioned that the 1960 school, all the change orders. So if it's 90% new, then we've already made that investment. We've already made to hopefully calculate those savings. So I really think, you know, it needs to be, in this conversation, it's like, do we have to do it now?
Not to mention, once we combine the two schools, down the road, we're gonna have savings. We're also gonna have a middle school to sell. I mean, all we do
I'm
is.
just projecting what we have
And
today.
I'm projecting.
Yes.
That's what I'm doing.
That's what I'm asking, is if you have additional information you would like me to project, I don't know what that information has. I don't have a dollar figure to project off of, so I give it a 0. This is the information we have today.
Okay.
When I get
So
new information, I can always
We have no idea what we're gonna
update.
save when we combine the 2 buildings. We don't have anything planned.
I think if we could predict that, I would show it.
But
I try to give the board as much information as possible when it comes to light.
But it's also not updated, because we have $800,000 from last year's budget that's gonna be there. So in theory, Brian, that $800,000, not $700,000, we've got $800,000 from the state that we got that outweighs that $1.3 million deficit last year.
Good, move that out, let's not spend it, I'd rather be safe than sorry. Move that out and put that in the unassigned again, if that's what we have to do. And again, push back the levy fields. I don't see why we have to spend and do a 0. Why are we not saving if we're going to do a 0? That's my point. Why are we gonna throw out $700,000 and do a 0 line budget? Why not save that $700,000, vote for it on the board, save that, put it in the unassigned, and see how it shakes out like you want to. I'd feel much more comfortable with saving that money rather than spending that money. And the extra $800,000 as well. I'd rather put that into ACTI and ensure that we have ACTI and show the JOC that we are committed to ACTI, show our parents that we're committed to ACTI, and show the students that we're committed to
This is
ACTI.
literally
We're
what
gonna
I
do that.
said back in the fall when we started talking about that surplus.
Okay.
I said, why don't we put it in ACTI?
Okay.
And everybody said, no, because then we don't have to raise taxes to the stuff that we have to do. That the teachers and the students are in the old part wearing hats and gloves and jackets because it's so cold in there. We have to have a new HVAC, we have to have this, we have to have that. So, I mean, this was all talked about in the fall.
Okay. Well, I've come around.
Okay.
Now's the time to do it.
We've got another meeting, so you're asking us for what percentage we wanna have.
I'm looking for, first is, do we want to present this? Because we would need a plan to present. 2, if it's yes, we want to present, what is to be presented?
Do we wanna present what?
Have me present a budget to the board with scenarios of any tax increase, no tax increase.
Okay, so let's, Jeannie,
No.
okay? Brian?
Not until we get some things worked out, I don't think. You know, I'd like to see work that out if we're gonna do anything. I would like to see it, you know, along with the other things as a possible option. All right?
Okay, Nick?
We're saying whether or not we wanna present it this month, or we gotta
This will
present
be on
budget to
Monday.
the board.
This will be on Monday.
So
Are you
my
all
typical
saying
time
not
on-
to present it to the full board on Monday?
If we say, if we can all agree on what we want it to say, I'm okay with presenting it. But not if we have literally no agreement.
I will say we can have 4 individual scenarios for each of
No,
the committee members.
anytime we want scenarios, everyone's like, no, we present one thing. Now all of a sudden, we want scenarios
I would
for the
say-
full board to
I
look
would
at.
We've always presented scenarios though with the budget.
No.
Since I've
Yes,
been
we
here,
have.
I've
Yeah, we
presented
have.
scenarios.
Yeah, we have.
It's been a sliding
have.
scale for the past several years of what the board and the committee wishes to push forward.
Okay, so really what we need to understand is we're looking at a 0 increase moving forward.
That's what we want to present, that's the only model I can present. It's
Okay?
just looking for some direction.
And, I mean, that's what I hear you saying, that's what I hear you saying, and I even hear you saying that.
I do, with stipulations. I don't wanna spend money and have a 0 tax increase. I think that's
Okay.
foolish.
So, one presentation could be in our 0 tax increase. Some of your thoughts maybe to be able to say where you're gonna shuffle that and what it's gonna look like.
That would be nice.
Okay, but at the same time, I need to hear from you guys and what you're thinking about what Brian's input is, and make sure that we're kind of moving forward in the same way.
You mean with the baseball and football?
I respect Brian's opinion, I don't think that the one that has to do with the other. But if that's.
Well, if you're not gonna bring any more money in and you're gonna put more money out, how is it not?
Well,
How am I not understanding?
It's
Tell me
surplus,
how I-
it's surplus money.
Okay.
It was assigned to the capital project fund.
Okay.
To do capital projects. Do you wanna cut the windows in the
No.
gym?
Well,
They're
wait,
necessary. Yeah,
I
but
mean, it's all
fields,
on the
we can go another year without that. but
Which
fields,
is fine.
Not with the windows and pneumatics and things like that, no, absolutely not.
Which is fine. But that's sitting there assigned, like Tom said.
Sure.
It's two separate funds and two separate budgets. The fund balance right now is, for the unassigned, is 10.48 million.
That would be assigned and unassigned.
It's like, yeah.
And it would be
Assigned
the next.
Unassigned is 1.77.
So that.
But that's plus
So
800,000 at least.
So so the top line there, so June 30, 2024, is as of that was the most current update of our fund balance. That is the number we use, because that is the most accurate number we have. The next line down would be with the current budget and the deficit that was approved as the model. Just to make sure, so we understand what's on the fund balance sheet. So right now, with the audits, 11.8, the deficit that we disapproved in 2025 reduced the unassigned by 1.5. Because that's how we showed that we're balancing the budget. That information at the top, so the 3.141 is what I'm going to show on the PDE budget, because that's the only information we have. So it will show that we have a deficit in our unassigned fund balance of 309,000, because it's always a year behind. I just want to make sure that that's clear. That will show up on the budget report, because that's the information we have to go off of. That is something standard that we do across every year.
Which is probably why we always end up with surpluses, because we're budgeting based on numbers that we know are true.
I'll come back to that. We'd be hard pressed to find any
Any
district
school
to
district
not
does the same, right.
do the same thing.
Hey.
Because that is the most accurate information we have today to go off of.
So Nick,
I don't
we're-
think every other school district has raised taxes for every year on record.
Could have done it for, what, 7% in Conowago?
I mean, part
We've
of our.
avoided that by not.
Part of our
That's
responsibility,
man.
I'm sorry, part of our responsibility is trying to do the best job we have to do with this district. And, so Jeannie, just any other word or anything?
I just think when you just had a $4 million surplus, it just doesn't look right to keep raising taxes just because you've had this conservative budget of revenue and high expenses, saying that we need another tax increase. That's me.
Okay.
But if Brian wants support on stopping the fields, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
All I'm saying is, look, if it works out, then at the end of the year, we have that money left over, and we start it next year. Right?
Yeah, I would just, if that's something we're gonna